लेकिन अब बात करते हैं इक्विटी मार्केट की। हमारे साथ दीपाली जुड़ चुकी है। दीपाली, क्या है खास?
शुक्र मृत्युंजय। मार्केट्स की शुरुआत सॉफ्ट नोट पर हुई और अब इंट्राडे लोज प्रभात बाजार आ चुके हैं। ऑलमोस्ट 20 पॉइंट्स नीचे इंडेक्स अभी ट्रेड कर रहा है 8659 के लेवल्स पर। तो शुरुआत फ्लैट हुई थी और अब एक थोड़ा सा प्रेशर मार्केट में बिल्डअप हुआ है और ज्यादातर स्टॉक्स आप देखिए ग्रासिम, भारती इन्फ्राटेल, ल्यूपिन, अंबुजा सीमेंट, ये कुछ शेयर्स हैं निफ्टी 51 से जो कि दबाव के साथ ट्रेड कर रहे हैं। लेकिन मार्केट पर एक ब्रॉडर आउटलुक अब ले लेते हैं और एक खास मेहमान हमारे साथ मौजूद है। वी हैव मिस्टर एंड्रयू हॉलैंड विद अस फ्रॉम एम्बिट इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर्स। गुड मॉर्निंग एंड्रयू। Andrew, what's your approach towards Indian markets at this point of time? Because most of the market participants feels that current valuations of Indian markets are a bit stretched right now. So do you feel the same or you have a different point of view on Indian markets?
No, I feel exactly the same. I think valuations are stretched not just in India but globally. Basically we're in a liquidity driven market, and when you're in these kind of markets it drives all asset prices higher and fundamentals really kind of go out of the door, and that's exactly where we are at the moment in terms of for our markets. For example, the trade data from China came out the other day, which was pretty awful. And it showed kind of imports from Australia down 22%, from Korea down 12%. So that still tells you that the China's economy is faltering, or still remaining very weak. But obviously markets just shrugged it off because liquidity remains so strong. But these things come back. The fundamentals always come back at some point. So that will happen once this liquidity-driven market or bubble bursts, and something will burst it.
Also, Andrew, so now the next big question is what could be the likely direction of Indian markets from here on? As you yourself said that current valuations seems to be priced in all positives in Indian markets, and at this current juncture, global equities are also not looking very great. And some of the big investors also raising concern, and they fear that global markets are due for a big drop. So in that case, what could be the likely direction of Indian markets from here on?
So you have to wait to see what bursts the liquidity bubble and what impact that would have on global markets, and then obviously reflecting that through to India. So it's very difficult to say the direction, because liquidity as it remains strong at the moment means momentum is still there for all markets, as we've been seeing. So we just have to wait for that time. It's very difficult to kind of be overly negative right this second, because it's making you look very stupid to do so, given markets are moving higher. So just sit there, enjoy the momentum, but something will change.
So Andrew, as you said, it's difficult to describe the direction of Indian markets from here on. Now the other big question is, what should investors do? The one investor which is sitting on huge profits, should he book some profits at this level? And also those who have missed this topless run, what should they do? They should wait for better levels to enter, or should you think this is the quite attractive level to make positions in Indian markets?
Yeah, it's two different questions, but obviously anyone sitting on profits, it depends on their time horizon. What I would say is that if you've got the right companies, then you should continue to hold. I think for anyone looking to enter the market at the moment, given it is liquidity driven, you could possibly wait for any corrections to start buying shares at this point. So it's not a kind of a classic view of you need to buy now, you need to sell now, because I think the long-term fundamentals of India remain strong. I'm not worried about India, but globally, we cannot continue to have the problems we're facing without some kind of correction at some point.
Okay, so you think global markets are poised for some risk, but Indian markets are in better situation. Now, how do you rate the earnings season so far? Because we have seen that economy is growing, but growth in certain sectors is still patchy. We have seen in this earnings season. So how do you access this earnings season, and do you think the second half of this year will be better with terms of earning growth, because the effect of good monsoon, effect of 7th pay commission will bring some growth in certain sectors?
Yeah, no, you've actually spelled out what I was going to say. So, prior to, say, the end of the monsoons, and the 7th pay commission kind of kicking in, we're expecting earnings growth of around 5 to 10%, which is kind of broadly in line with what we're seeing at the moment. Thereafter, considering that the monsoons seem to be fine and that continues, then earnings growth could be nearer to 10 to 15% for the balance of the year. So you will see an earnings growth kicker, but when you're on 19 times 1 year forward, all of these things have to play out. So that's why we just think at the moment valuation's a little bit stretched. It's taken into account a lot of good news, and at the moment, we're just seeing any bad news as good news, and good news as very good news. So that's where we are.
Okay. But Andrew, as you said, ki one should approach markets on depth. Now, other question is ki which sectors to buy or which stocks to approach, because so far banks are still not giving investment comfort amid asset quality woes. We have seen consumer-related stocks; they have driven a lot, they have run up a lot. If you see the IT sector or the pharmaceutical sector, talking precisely of IT sector, decade of high growth, which was expected in IT sector, is not now looking that much lucrative in between increased competition. So which sectors to approach now where you see the growth coming in?
So we continue to like sectors we've liked since the beginning of the year, which is the banking sector, mainly the private banks, NBFCs. Although I wouldn't be chasing stocks at these kind of valuations. If you hold them, then hold them. And the cement companies. That's where we've been concentrating most of our portfolio. The other sector which we've added to in the last few months has been pharmaceutical. After all the FDA notices, value was there, and that's starting to recover from those lows, and therefore you can start to see growth coming through for the pharma companies going forward. So I think that re-rating of the pharma sector will continue, and it's probably at the expense of the IT sector, which will continue to face huge headwinds going forward. Not just because of all the different technologies and the way that the world's changing, but also because of headwinds from Europe and particularly from the UK. So it's a sector we continue to dislike, and will continue to avoid, if not keep it on our radar for shorting as and when markets fall.
So you are avoiding IT space, and some banks are looking attractive to you. Some specific names in banks and pharma especially you like at this point of time?
Not specific names, but obviously the mainly the large private banks, which is not that many, and obviously the larger pharmaceutical companies. We're not looking at the kind of mid to small cap pharma companies at this stage. We think the re-rating is going to be in the large caps.
Also, Andrew, we are trying to understand the root reason why mid-cap stocks have been appreciated the way they have grown up. So, do you think a mid-cap story will continue to rule Indian markets if one keeps a view of 6 months or probably 1 year?
No, listen, I mean, taking a broad brush across all mid-cap companies is always fraught with danger, but what I would say is that, this is a domestic-driven economy, and therefore, mid-cap companies in the right sectors, right products, so forth and so on, and obviously with good management, will continue to enjoy, that domestic demand growth as we see, and obviously operational gearing is one of the big things that will boost earnings for these companies. So, I'm not saying that the party will continue for mid-caps, because obviously if markets fall, mid-caps get hurt disproportionately. But in certain areas, certain companies will continue to do well. So we like the mid-cap space, but taking a broad brush approach is quite difficult. But I would have thought they would be a very good proxy for the domestic growth of India.
Also, Andrew, one question on RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan also. In his last policy meeting yesterday, Governor kept the rates unchanged though, but we had word with a lot of market participants, lot of corporates, and they review the Raghuram Rajan performance as a good performance in terms of inflation, in terms of rate cuts, in terms of economic growth. How you access his performance?
No, I wouldn't disagree with any of that. I think if the only area I would probably kind of mark a bit lower was that I think he could have reduced interest rates a lot quicker and a lot faster than he did. I think even yesterday, if I listened to what he said, I mean, all the indicators he had, were pointing to an interest rate cut. So, I'm not sure why he didn't fire that bullet, but he didn't. So maybe the next RBI governor has that envious position of being able to start off his new term with an interest rate cut for the markets, and we'll all like him because of that.
Okay. One last question, Andrew. How do you see interest rate scenario from here on?
Well, obviously, globally, they continue to head downwards, and I think that if I'm correct, that China is still slowing. Then obviously commodity prices at some point will also come off. So that's a good impact for India in terms of lower input prices, and therefore if the monsoons are good, so the two together would mean that we could see at least 50 basis points the balance of this year. I mean calendar year.
Okay.
And then we can see what's happening globally before taking another call.
Okay. Well, thanks, Andrew, for talking to Zee Business and sharing your views on Indian markets, global markets and the sectors you like. तो एंड्रू से यहाँ पर बातचीत थी, जिन्होंने कहा कि इंडियन मार्केट्स की डायरेक्शन के बारे में कुछ भी कहना अभी मुश्किल है. ग्लोबल मार्केट्स अच्छा परफॉर्म नहीं कर रहे हैं. एक रिस्क ग्लोबल मार्केट्स को लेकर जरूर बना हुआ है, लेकिन क्योंकि इंडियन मार्केट्स में लिक्विडिटी आ रही है और जब तक ये लिक्विडिटी आती रहेगी इंडियन मार्केट्स परफॉर्म करते रहेंगे. इसलिए लाइकली डायरेक्शन क्या होगी इस पर कुछ भी कॉमेंट करना मुश्किल है. हालांकि कुछ चुनिंदा बड़े प्राइवेट बैंक्स उनको अच्छे लग रहे हैं. फार्मास्यूटिकल स्पेस वो उनको लग रहा है कि अब एक री रेटिंग हो रही है. और एक इंपॉर्टेंट बात उन्होंने लास्ट में कही कि इस कैलेंडर ईयर में 50 बेसिस पॉइंट तक का कट भी आ सकता है, ऐसी उनकी एक्सपेक्टेशंस है.